Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Get into it.
And welcome to the Retrograde video game podcast, where this week we count down our top 10 favorite things of the year.
Wow, wonderful. Just as always. Rest in peace, Oprah. My name is Andrew Baskin. With me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey E 2003. Mikey E 2003.
Yeah.
It's just because it rhymes. Aaronworth.
2023.
2000. Shit.
That's why I was like, wait, is that a code? Or?
I thought we were counting down our top 10 favorite things from the year 2003.
Don't put it past us. We might. Just give us a couple weeks.
The fact that we're getting closer and closer to Osama, that's at number one.
Oh, yeah. When did we, because we were on SEAL Team 6, kill Osama bin Laden? And when did The Rock tell us about it? Oh, no. Who is it? Oh, John Cena.
Is that what happened?
So there's a very famous, we are going to be counting down our 10 favorite things.
We are eventually.
This year. John Cena comes out during a wrestling show because he gets word because he knows military guys that they killed Osama bin Laden. And he comes out in front of 20,000 people and goes, guys, everybody, I just want to let you know something. We got him. We killed Osama bin Laden. Which is so funny because now that you think about the newsroom, and there's a very famous, hilarious, like really stupid scene where one of the writers or producers is stuck on the tarmac of a plane.
I hate, that is the episode that made me turn off that show for good.
Oh, that was it? Yeah. Okay. There's a few moments where you're like your eyes can't roll far enough back in your head. And he's like, guys, I need to let you know. I need to be the first person to tell you. We killed Osama bin Laden, and everyone just starts applauding like you're part of it.
Yeah.
John Cena did that in real life, and people did applaud, and like we're like, you're the best, and they bought his t-shirt and made him money.
And then he fucking rock bottomed someone.
Yeah.
For the first time, he borrowed The Rock's move.
Can't tell, was it The Rock? Yeah, it was something like that, yeah.
It sounds like a John Cena thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could be one or the other, yeah.
It could be one or the other, and this is Wrestling Cast, obviously. But it is kind of fitting that we start off not talking strictly about video games, because this list is something that we used to do over on the Patreon. Obviously, we've sunset the Patreon. I always love sunsetting as a term.
Nice.
As a term.
Yeah.
We slit its throat. We slit the Patreon's throat and sent it out to pasture and then curb stomped it.
We took out the Patreon, we were behind it, and we went shh, 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 shh.
And then we
slowly
Boondock Saints styled,
yes,
shooting it twice in the back of the head. No, we usually do this a top 10 things of the year, because obviously we spend all year talking about video games, and we want to kind of open it up, do something a little special with the end of the year. Obviously, video games are a large part of my life, and they're a large part of your life, so they are going to litter our lists, but we're going to open it up to TV, movies, maybe some books, maybe some music. Who knows? My number one last year on this list was Orville Peck's new album, Bronco. So
really? And how do you feel about that?
Fantastic. That was still, I think, my number one album this year.
Wow.
I think my Spotify Wrapped played, and it was like I was watching last year's Spotify Wrapped.
Do you need new music? Send Mikey new music, everybody.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Wait, isn't this the Spotify Wrapped where you can't publish it because it's all like brown noise and stuff like that, or like musical, like instrumentals to famous things?
It is a lot of what I listen to is like video game lo-fi music.
Right.
So it's like, it's not even worth posting because people are like, but that's what I listen to at work. It's not like, it's because there's no lyrics and it's not going to distract me or anything like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. The real inspiration for this too used to be from Oprah's Favorite Things, where we just named things that we like from the year, and it really started because I think it started just before COVID, where it's like, this sucks. This year sucks. Everything sucks.
I think it was actually, we ended up doing at the end of the decade, the top 10 things of the decade. And we did top 10 movies, top 10 TV shows, top 10. And then I think the year after that, we were just kind of like, what about just a top 10 things? Let's kind of keep it. Let's make it all one.
You decide.
You decide, babies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our 10 favorite things that we're going to name. And I'm really excited to do so. It was a good year.
It was, man, putting this list together was almost impossible. Like it was, I feel like I say this at the beginning of every one of these episodes that we do. It's like, oh, I could have had 20. I could have had 50 items. This year felt particularly strong across all mediums. Am I wrong in that? Or is this just...
No, I have a real theory that I think COVID really helped 2023.
Oh, true.
Where it just pushed everything into condensed year. Now, between this and the strikes, 2024, watch out.
That's true.
Yeah, we'll see about that. That's why 2025 seems to come up a lot for stuff like 2025.
Well, like, I mean, I think video game companies now, for good reason, are a lot more transparent with their release dates.
Sure.
So every time we get a new trailer at the end of 2023, it's like very unrealistic that a game that we're seeing for the first time, even using GTA 6 as an example, is going to come out the following year. Like it's going to take longer than that. We know
right.
That.
I was even saying that because McDonald's is going to bring back the snack wrap, one of their famous items that people have liked in the past, and they said it's going to be back in 2025.
Well, they don't need that much time to plan. That's insane.
So going to do they raise the chickens. They're probably like, get these chickens raised. We got to kill them soon. Then we got to work on the snack wraps.
Snack wraps 1 through 30 million they've named.
Yeah, and they're just like, not ready yet.
Like how George Foreman named all of his kids George Foreman.
Yeah, Georgina.
Yeah, that's really funny. And also good parenting.
I'm sure he's a great parent.
Before we get into, imagine like everyone's afraid of their dad. Imagine your dad was George Foreman, heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, who's both violent and not all there all the time.
True.
Like that's a real great combo.
But he grills a mean panini, Andrew.
Yeah. Did you own a George Foreman grill?
I have a grill that's similar to that. I mean, there are the George Foreman grills, like actual trademarked.
Yeah.
But then there are also those grills that are just more like panini presses. And
I've essentially what it is.
I've always had one of those in my life. They're fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I never owned one.
They're so good.
Yeah, I know. I should.
I'll make you a panini.
No, I'm okay.
I'll do it right now, Andrew.
Do you like sandwiches more in panini form?
Depends on the sandwich.
Yeah, fair.
But often, like if there's like prosciutto on it, you got to be panini.
The prosciutto is the thing that does it.
Prosciutto and cheese.
Not cheese. Oh, cheese.
The prosciutto. Okay. Yeah, I don't need to just.
I was like, why is it just prosciutto that makes it
like
better?
a prosciutto sandwich.
Sure,
like
prosciutto. Yes.
Prosciutto
well, I
sandwich
assume it's a sandwich.
With cheese.
Yeah, that's why it's a panini. That's yeah. Okay, we're just not on the same page.
We're not on the same page. And just like the protagonist in this game that I want to talk about, that I've been playing before we get into our top 10 lists. I've been playing this game. The protagonist is not on the same page with anyone else in the game.
It's because he's an author? Oh, damn it. It's not Alan Wake 2.
It's not Alan Wake 2, but that will come up later on. That would be pretty good, actually. Everyone is on his page because he's the one writing the book.
There we go. That's good. That should have been the tagline to the game.
Everyone is on his page.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like a bad tagline, actually. I mean, I like the spirit of it, but then again, now we're talking about spirits and I'm afraid again, just like I was when I was playing Alan Wake 2. Not afraid, though, playing Chance of Sonar, which is the game that I've been playing recently. It's an interesting puzzle type game. Go figure. It's the end of the year. There are 1,000 AAA games that I haven't played yet from this year, and yet I find myself playing a much smaller release that is still from this year, an indie game where you kind of make your way through this world in an isometric perspective, the best perspective in gaming.
Yeah, your favorite.
And you every time someone talks to you or you read a sign, it's just in symbols, and you have no idea what these symbols mean. The goal of the game is to translate the language, and there are 4 languages in the game. So you can start to use one language to translate another. You might find a sign that's like the Rosetta Stone or something where it compares different sayings to one another. You can kind of see, like a guard somewhere, there's warriors marching or something like that, and the guard yells 2 symbols. Like that's what's represented. You like yell something, you just see 2 symbols. Okay. And then they stop, and then he yells the 2 symbols again, and they keep going. And one symbol is the same both times. Right. The other one changes. Right. And from that, you can figure that what this person is saying is warriors halt, warriors march. Okay. Now you have the word for warrior, and you have the word for march and stop. And you can start to use this and pass these words along to other signs to infer and clarify other blocks of text that you wouldn't have otherwise known as you start to build out this understanding of how the languages work. And then as you start to, from a story perspective, translate one another's language, because each of the different, it's like a Tower of Babel thing, like each of the different civilizations can't speak to one another. So there's conflict. When you start to translate for them, they start to get along a little bit more, and the story starts to come together like that. Really cool idea. Yeah. And something that, I'm probably about 6 hours in or something like that. I don't think it's much longer than where I'm at right now. It gets wildly complicated, and I find the traversal to be a little bit tiring, but because I've never experienced a game like this before, I've been really enjoying my time with it.
Okay. And the name again is
Chance of Sonar.
Chance of Sonar.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It really
sounds
good.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds also like, not educational, but it sounds like it's challenging and like works your brain a little bit out.
There is, it definitely, you're right. It's definitely challenging, but it also has that appeal of playing with the theme of misunderstanding other cultures and other groups and stuff like that.
I don't like the socialist nonsense of this.
Then you're gonna hate this game, Andrew. Just like I just try to tune that out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is a symbol? Let me translate it, and then it's like, this symbol's love, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh, the more I understand you, the more I like you. Yeah, no. And then you start trying to sabotage them. It's not an option in the game. Well, that sounds really lovely. And you're playing that on your Steam Deck? Or?
Playing it on my Steam Deck. Most indie games play on Steam Deck. The exception of this year was a game that's going to show up on my list at some point. So I don't even want to talk about it just now. Yeah.
No spoilers. Okay, 2 games I want to talk about.
Okay.
Since this is a video game podcast.
I didn't ask, but like if you want to go for it, I guess go for it.
I don't have to.
Make
number 10.
Make my day.
Yeah. I rolled credits on Dead Island 2. Yep. It's a game, guys.
It's a game.
It's a game. It was nominated for one of the best games of the year in the action adventure category.
And what are your thoughts on that?
You know, in premise, it's a good idea. I'm gonna spoil a little aspect of the game that I don't know.
There are zombies.
Okay, yeah, there are zombies.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, there's zombies in the Dead Island.
Yeah.
Which is not an island yet because it's California.
The zombie
Soon,
itself is an island. I mean,
every man is an island in a way.
Itself is a zombie.
Yeah. It's a more of a mental state, I think, than anything else. You yourself are the one that can be cured because you've turned into a zombie, got bit, but you're human still.
Okay.
So at parts
You're
of the game,
Ellie of the situation.
yeah, really, but except there's a big difference. I can access my zombie powers and become a zombie from time to time.
Has Ellie tried this? Can we ask her?
I don't know. That's a really good point. Yeah, that'd be so funny if Joel just looks at her and goes like, "Have you tried being a zombie?" She's like, "No." He's like, "Well, you should try that."
How scared would you be if you were Joel? I mean, just first of all, blanket question. How scared?
Yes.
The answer is very,
very extremely.
But one day Ellie's sleeping and you kind of like look over at her and instead of snoring, she's going,
yeah,
like the clickers,
yeah. Oh no, yeah,
like a dolphin.
Oh no, she's turning into a dolphin.
She can breathe
I need to
underwater.
find seawater. Yeah, it's that would be very scary. Obviously, I think that's in the back of your head the whole time though. That like, oh man, I might have to kill this girl.
Yeah. Isn't it wild? Isn't it? Because it just occurred to me. I was like, they can breathe underwater. Like dolphins, you can breathe underwater. Dolphins can't.
No.
Isn't that so fucked up?
It's so fucked up that they live
in it.
Yeah, in a majority of the place where they cannot actually live the whole time or sustain
100% of their lives, with the exception of the brief period where they're up airborne, pretty much like Echo the Dolphin. Worried that when you land, all your friends are going to be gone, just like it happened to Echo. But your entire life, like the way we worry about like what our next meal is going to be.
Yeah.
But that's like, that can take some preparation. You can plan in advance. Dolphins just have to be like, I got to get back up there in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Dude, does that mean that whales and, well, not whales.
Do they not sleep? No, whales too. Whales.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Anything with a blowhole.
Brendan Fraser breathes the whole movie outside of water.
Do they go very deep because their awareness that they need to get back to the surface? I know whales kind of go kind of deep.
Yeah.
Because I imagine they're also carrying a lot of air. They're very large. I don't know if anyone's heard this.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah. Dolphins though, how deep do they go?
That's a good question. I don't know. We'd have to ask them.
Yeah. We know whales go deep because in Avatar 2 we learned that they write poetry and jazz.
Oh, well, yeah, they're very deep. They're very deep.
That line. Whoa. That movie kind of is good. Okay.
Speaking of, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora
Yeah.
is out and it's getting very middling reviews. I will say that for how bad it could have been, this is impressive that it's getting like 75s across the board.
I know. Yeah. They're like, it looks good. You're like, and now what?
I was convinced for a bit that it was going to be a good movie, but a good game, but I don't think I'm going to be trying it out. Yeah.
So in Dead Island 2, you can become a zombie. And I was hoping that this power would be, it's just not fun.
Yeah.
And like, you just kind of like rip people apart and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I hoped you could become a zombie and just like got through levels by just, get through. You're
they're
incognito.
so zombies still attack you when you're a zombie.
They don't, but you attack them and then they're like, what the fuck, Brad?
So they can still think?
No, they are probably responding to attack that they're defending themselves.
What do I think?
I think it's a natural instinct.
I think they're thinking. And trust me, Andrew, as someone who's so good at thinking,
yeah,
I do it all the time. I don't know about you.
Really?
There's always it's like thinking about a dolphin coming up for air.
Yeah, I'm a classic man. We're like, what do you think about? Like
nothing,
not at all.
I'm
on neutral right now. Second thing is, we've kind of teased this in the past, but like Fortnite this season is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's so goddamn good. Because in the last one, if anyone didn't know, they went back to the OG season, which was the first season. It's a very stripped down version with all these like power ups that didn't exist. They took away all those power ups that have been added to the game over season every season. And it was fine, but it was kind of like more of a, like a Christmas past, like kind of like, dude, this would be the future without anything that happened. Very good. Yes, thank you. And now they brought it all back and advanced it, and it's like It's so much fun. It is really good. There's a train that runs through a thing that has a bunch of treasure on it. There's a bunch of, it's great.
Epic is on a tear, man. I look at them and I know that they're owned by Tencent, so they basically have like as much money as they want, but they themselves are doing very well. And it seems like they are changing the gaming space in a way that is irreversible, where they are just creating an ecosystem where you can play, like they got
The Lego thing.
The Lego, they partner with Lego. So they have Minecraft, they partner with Harmonix. So they basically have like a rock band. They partner with Psyonix, I think it is, or
with the Rocket,
which is Rocket League.
Yeah.
And all of that is within the ecosystem of Fortnite. It's something we've never seen before, and the closest we've ever been to Ready Player One, I think.
Yeah, it's a hub for all your entertainment.
Yeah.
Inside of a free downloaded program.
It means that I have to get into it at some point.
It's that, or you're like, wouldn't it be great if it just all becomes video games? And you're like, well, I guess I'm out of video games.
I guess
now.
I'm out. Yeah.
I've already made my decision. But yeah, we'll talk about Fortnite more in the future. This is not this episode for that. This is the episode about our 10 favorite things.
It is the episode about our 10 favorite things, and I can't wait to get in it. 10 favorite things, 10 things I hate about you, more like 10 things I loved about 2003, Andrew.
23.
Why do I keep saying
are you okay? I thought you did that intentionally. And then you looked really scared when I corrected, and I realized, oh God, he didn't do that intentionally. I'm worried about
10 things I loved about 2023.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Let's get into it, Andrew.
You're going to keep signing all your checks next year, 2004.
Andrew, isn't it so? I just got used to writing 2023, and the calendar's about to turn over.
Do you own a checkbook?
Yeah.
Why?
Because to pay for, this is true, to pay for air filters for my condo, you have to pay using a check.
What the hell?
It's the only thing I use them for now.
Do you use a time machine as well?
Yes, I have to twirl my mustache and wink twice and then tip my fedora
get some
at
seal blubber and 2 tulips.
That sounds great. If I had seal blubber and tulips, Andrew, I think I'd just turn my air conditioning off and light blubber.
I'd move to my castle.
I would move to my castle, 100%.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, Andrew. Number 10, who do you want to go first in this one? Because this is a big one.
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. My number 10, I toyed with where this one, just like all of this, and keep in mind, I'll say this is kind of a little bit of to preface most of my picks. These, if you ask me tomorrow to rebuild this list, it might be different than what it is now. Like there's so many good things, and the especially when we include movies, TV, and games on them, the delineation of 10th versus 9th is so indiscernible. Yeah. So my number 10 is I think you should leave season 3. Something that I thought at first it would be higher, but the way that I started to make this list is I started to give a little bit of preferential treatment to entries that weren't the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever entry of a thing. I like a little bit, and that's why a game that I'll talk about in a little bit isn't on this list because it was a little bit not fresh for compared to some of the other things I've had on this that were. I think you should leave season 3. Some of the greatest sketches that you can find in that show. You and I love that show. We did an entire sketch ranking when season 3 came out. We're looking back on I think you should leave season 3, Andrew. Where does it rank for you in hindsight? Like now that enough time has passed, is it among some of the best sketches or?
Oh, I love it. I loved it then. I still love it now. I don't think it's moved at all. I still think it's the second best season of the show. I think it has just, really, by the nature of a sketch show, it doesn't need to be like what 9 good episodes this was. It really does come down to individual sketches and how it can be memorable and like buoy the whole show. Sure. By saying like, oh, I've got these 5 that I'll never forget. Yep. And I think it has those for sure. I think it has a like in spades. Like I think it has
some of my favorite ones I've seen. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think some of the most like pop culture-y too. This is a sketch show with a guy that didn't really make it on SNL and now has made his own career. It's kind of unbelievable that you could talk about the Driving Crooner or something like that. And people would go like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
But like everyone would know.
It's just crazy.
It's such common parlance. When I talk to someone who doesn't know I think you should leave, that's weirder to me than someone who has, which is bizarre because it's such strange humor. Yeah, it's so relative to what I would call the mainstream.
It's like aggressive humor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I what I liked about season 3 is, like there is a part where you're like, and then Tim goes crazy and then yells at everybody. And there is a lot in this season where he's the normal guy and somebody else goes crazy. And I'm like, oh, he's learning. This is good.
Exactly. Keep us on our toes.
So does this mean that you're now thinking more favorably of it? Because tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember when we recorded the episode, you're like, I like it, but this is my 3rd favorite season.
Yeah, I can't remember actually what
Maybe
I
I'm
said
putting
when we
words in
did
your
that,
mouth,
but I do remember watching it and liking it as we were watching it more than when I first watched season 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I think I might rank it as number 2. It's tough. That's tough. That's
It's
such a moving
tough.
target for me. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's a real proverbial Sophie's choice.
It is. It is.
Okay, so as always, I'm just saying this because I have a feeling my number 10 is going to be a duplicate on Mikey's list. But is that if one of us has it higher, we will wait till the higher one number comes up, and then we'll speak about it then. Because my number 10 is going to be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Andrew? It is on my list.
Yeah, it's on his list.
It is on my list.
Okay, so we'll wait till we get to that one.
Wait. We will go then to my number 9, which I sincerely doubt is on your list.
Okay.
A game that I've been talking about a lot lately, and it was a toss-up between this and another somewhat similar game.
Okay.
I'm going with Alan Wake 2.
Okay.
As my number 9. When I first started playing this game, I would have guessed that it would show up somewhere much higher. When I first finished this game, I didn't know if it was going to make my top 10 list. Yeah. And yet I'm a couple weeks removed from having rolled credits on it, and I keep thinking about it. And love it or hate it, think they nailed the landing, don't think they nailed the landing. The fact that I'm still thinking about it and still want to talk about it is a very good sign.
Completely agree.
The Game Awards had Poets of the Fall, which are kind of like an in-house band that makes music for these games. They performed as the Old Gods of Asgard, which is a band in Alan Wake 2 Poets of the Fall play, and there's an incredible sequence in Alan Wake 2, one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had in a game, that they mimicked on stage during the performance, where the actor who played Alan Wake and Mr. Door and Sam Lake himself came out and did the whole dance, and it was very fun. And watching that, I was like, man, I really did have some good times with that game.
Yeah.
So number 9, it could have been higher. The game that it was kind of a toss-up between that and the other was Resident Evil 4, which turns out isn't on my list. An unbelievable, one of my favorite games of the year for sure.
Really?
But in a year that had a lot of more unique entries.
Yes.
I mean, I could have put Resident Evil 4 on my list every year for the last 20 years. So I figured I would take it off now.
Mikey, you need to return your English degree. More unique? Good God. Get out.
What do you mean?
More, it can't be more. It's unique or it's not unique. There's qualifiers on unique.
That's true. I didn't think about that. You know what?
Oh, now I feel bad.
No, I want to be upset. That's one of those things that I will never forget.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't do this.
No, in a good way.
Now I feel bad. Now I'm going to stay awake being like, you can't call out Mikey on English, man.
No, you I mean, you can.
Or in England, I can't.
Just make sure you're correct.
I was so scared when you were like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't either then. He's the one with the degree. Okay, so that's your number 9. My number 9, I usually try and include, podcasts are a huge part of my life.
Sure.
I listen to a ton of podcasts. I have podcasts. I possess podcasts.
You own them. And you're collecting them like Pokemon cards.
Oh, I really am. But in a nefarious way.
What is the equivalent of the holographic Charizard?
That's a good question. Cereal.
That's
first podcast.
100% what it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so just because there's such a big part of my life, and I listen to, oh my God, it would be, my Spotify Wrapped would be a sad number of just podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to name
It's
like.
not the only thing that's sad when it's wrapped.
Condoms, am I right? For sailors. And instead of saying something like the Bill Simmons podcast or some big podcast where it's just a guy or sports or something like that, I don't think that's really exciting. I can't begin to describe, this is something I've loved for years, and is honestly an inspiration of why we made the podcast in the first place, is the Doughboys.
Oh man. They've really, I mean, they hit their stride forever ago, but this year has been so good.
It has been, it's such a good show. And if you're unaware of it, it is Mike Mitchell and Nick Weiger, two of the co-hosts that review fast food restaurants. Now, if you don't think that sounds interesting, it kind of isn't. And it's not really the point of the show.
Don't tell that to Nick.
Yeah, no, very much. But that's kind of the good part of the bit.
Yes.
Is that one takes it very seriously. One could not care less. And it's not a bit. Like, they are these people. And their chemistry together, even though they would not talk maybe outside of the podcast, is so good. And on a separate note too, my player one, even after getting married, has been working nights. And one of the nights she always works is Wednesday night. But Wednesday at midnight, the Doughboys podcast comes out. And so I always kind of listen to it as I'm like going to bed and like waiting for her to come home.
That's great.
And so there's this like really great.
And often she doesn't.
No, and I'm like getting a gang together to go out. We're swinging lights and dogs.
Have you ever checked the hot neighbors room?
No, but she wouldn't go there.
No, of course.
I always ask, and I'm like, Gary, do you want to come out and help?
And he wouldn't lie about this.
No,
because he's hot and honest too.
He is. He's always like partially clothed. He's like, no, I can't. I'm too busy. I'm like, I know, man. It's okay.
Weird that another man named Gary is another rival of yours in your life.
I think that's why I was so tuned into Pokemon, where I was like, I got to crush this man, crush this little boy. But the Doughboys podcast continues to be amazing, and I could do this every year. But I particularly more than anything just want to give him a shout out just for being incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that show. It's amazing. Nick Weiger is, for my money, the funniest living person apart from maybe Tim Robinson. I think Nick Weiger's comedy is just second to none.
That really says something about those two men. You're like, those are the funniest guys in the world. And they're like, can barely speak in public.
Well, I mean, there's Jeff Dunham, obviously.
Well, Jeff Dunham. Jeff Dunham.
Yeah. There's Jeff Foxworthy. All the Jeffs.
Famous comedians. Joe Rogan.
He's a comedian. His stand-up's not great.
Is it not?
I don't love it. I don't love it. And I am a listener of the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah.
But I don't love it. And
you really do.
What an experience!
What experience that is. You're not even joking.
But I don't love his stand-up.
What was it called? News Radio, the show he was on?
Yes, his first break.
Yeah, that show was really funny, by the way.
Oh, is it?
He's the worst part of it, and it's not his fault. He's just got nothing to do.
Yeah.
But like Phil Hartman, that show was actually really funny. And I think the first person that they cast in that part was Ray Romano.
Oh.
And then they're like, oh, I think he's going to do something else. And then they put Joe Rogan in. And I'm like, that show would have been then it's like
different.
1 to 8, where it's like, those are all famous, really famous people.
Who would have hosted Fear Factor, though?
Ray Romano. No, yeah.
I don't know about those scorpions.
The next challenge is spending 20 minutes with my in-laws. And everyone's like, it's great.
It's amazing.
So Doughboys number 9 for me.
Doughboys number 9. My number 8, we can talk about it now, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Another movie that I think could very well be much higher up on some lists. It's unbelievable. It visually, story-wise, but it is also very similar in a lot of ways to Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
So I wanted to open up my list a bit to show some love to some more unique entries as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's impressive on a lot of ways. You know, the animation side of it is just unbelievable as a Marvel, just the way that they drew things. As
a Marvel, as in like Marvel property, or Marvel as in this is marvelous?
It's marvelous.
I legitimately didn't know.
No. I think the way that they use the DC. Oh no, wait, shit. Okay. Oh my God, now I'm confused. It's two things. The animation actually is breathtaking. There are moments that, like, this is one of those, like, God, I hope you saw it in the theaters. Like, there are moments you're looking around the screen and you can't believe that 7 different animation styles have all worked their way into one screen, and yet it doesn't clash. Like, it works for some reason.
Yeah, different frame rates, different.
Yeah, like it just blows your mind that they're all different styles. There's watercolor, there's, static, there's all these amazing things.
There was a time I remember during the movie where I was like, is someone playing the Top Gun soundtrack? Because this took my breath away. I said that out loud.
And it's because the Top Gun soundtrack takes your breath away?
It's because there's a song on it called Take My Breath Away.
Right. So,
but I couldn't think of who wrote the song.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I know there's a quicker, a more direct reference, but I couldn't make it.
No. But wait, so because somebody's playing that music, it's because it's titled Take Your Breath Away and doesn't actually take your breath away.
Well, the song doesn't lie. It does take my breath away.
Right. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Yeah. So you heard that song and you went...
I honestly won't listen to a song unless the title is factual and has an effect on me in what it says.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm thinking Twist and Shout.
Yeah, Twist and Shout. Party all night long.
I discovered my epilepsy listening to that song. I didn't know I had it until I listened to it.
Come on, baby. Twist and Shout. That's, of course, not the title of a song. That's a lyric inside of Twist and Shout. So that's not something that you physically had to do.
Not inside.
Okay, very, very good. On top of that, it was a very emotional story that resonated with me. I don't know. I think the Miles Morales story and the way they brought that to life, I think it's now pretty clearly probably the best thing that the MCU
Spider-Man's
and Marvel...
in a long time.
I think it's the best Marvel property they have out there. Like, it's just, it really is captivating. They have fully fleshed out villains. The Oscar Isaac, villain is great. Spider-Man is so good. And all these jokes that kind of shouldn't work. Like, the amount of knowledge you have to walk into and going like, oh, so that's actually the video game character from the thing. You're like, how are people or Donald Glover was actually supposed to be, it's like, that's a crazy inside joke. And yet it works, and the whole theater with me was like laughing.
It's one of those movies that, I think when movies want to get referential, they can be so referential that it feels like they're insulting a fan of the franchise.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're hand feeding me this joke so everyone gets it, then I don't feel good about having gotten it. Where
Yeah.
like it's like Lord and Miller know that people are super fans, and whether you get the joke or not, it's not going to affect your interpretation of the story, but it will feel really good because it feels earned in some way. Yeah,
I completely agree with you, and I just it's an incredible thing, and to the point that like I think it was spoiled for me that it was part of one of two of the sequel.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind that. I was like, you get 2.5 hours of entertainment. They're just telling you there's going to be another one.
I've heard this from a lot of people, and I heard it before I saw the movie. They're like, you should know going into it that it's a cliffhanger. And I was happy knowing it, because it is a bummer, because I'm like, oh shit, there's stuff that I want.
Yeah.
Like they do finish a story thread, but it's not the story thread.
Yes.
So there is a lot hanging there. Yeah.
Or web, really, when you think about it.
I haven't thought much about it. And that's weird, because I do spend a lot of time thinking, probably more than 75% of my life thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? You said the Lord Miller thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Their involvement in the second movie is light to none.
Is that true?
That's why they didn't direct it.
Oh.
And because there were supposed to be creative differences, they're still producing.
Between Lord and Miller?
No, between them and the studio, I assume.
Oh, okay.
I hope not. Don't break them up.
No, don't break them up.
Don't
They're
put
so
that in the
good.
universe.
They're so good.
We need that in 2024. But
Or the Spider-Verse.
I find that amazing that they were able to do that even with maybe them taking a step back.
That's
pretty incredible.
It is very incredible.
Yeah, 3 directors too. It blows your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is
this is
your
now your number 8. You're gonna go
my
for.
number 8. My number 8 is going to be a video game.
Okay.
It's going to be a very. You know what's funny is that this is a year. This is going to come up.
Regale me. What's funny, Andrew?
Oh, I will.
Because you're the expert on this.
Thank you.
What's funny? Correcting someone's grammar on a comedy video game podcast? What's funny, Andrew?
It's not funny. I don't know why I did that. I was so quickly like, no, sir. Like, Jesus Christ, what an asshole. Is the 2023 will really kind of be the year for the masters have come back into their crafts. We've
Phil
seen,
Mickelson.
Right. He's the other guys from Live.
They've all joined.
They all joined, all the masters.
Yeah.
Is that we've gotten movies from Scorsese and Michael Mann and Ridley Scott and to all I'd say arranging a level of success.
Yep.
But we've gotten this opportunity for people to come back and make a point on something that they have had a long standing with, and I think a big part of that has got to be. So we had a Super Mario game this year. We had Super Mario Wonder.
Yes.
And that's pretty incredible. Does it show up on your list?
It doesn't show up on my list.
Oh, good. We get to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's just like we take it for granted.
I just want to say before you go on, I love that I love how you started that by saying this is the return of masters, because when you said that, I'm still such a gaming is a new medium that I'm like, right, Scorsese and all these film directors and all this. But yeah, Miyamoto is a master.
Miyamoto
is absolutely a master. Yeah.
And he's, all these guys are getting older, guys. That's too bad. But all of them are getting older.
Yeah.
And we should appreciate their last works. If they have something to say to us and they, we can learn from them, that's something we can do.
Yeah.
Super Mario made a game. And I think sometimes if it was named something else, I think we'd appreciate it more. I think we take Mario for granted.
You're so right about that.
It is a really good game. And we're just like, yes, of course. Of course this really
If this game were released as an indie game, which of course it couldn't, because the amount of budget that goes into what seems simple but is actually this crazy, well thought out, realized thing. If this game were to come out as an indie game, it would be game of the year.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain of that.
I know.
Yeah.
It's almost one of those things where the trappings and the colors and the IP has kind of hurt it in a way, because we go, well, of course it's good. It's Mario. Mario doesn't make bad games.
Yeah.
And it's just an incredible wonder. Ooh, hello. I find this to be my favorite kind of gaming. I can pick something up. I can take a little bite size of it, 20 minutes. I'm like, that was fun. I put it back down and I can take a break from it. Instead of video games really trying to create, we just talked about Fortnite, trying to consume all your life and make it going we have to be the hub for everything you use. And when you're not playing, we want you to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
This is just one of those ones that you can play, feel really good about, be very imaginative. It takes you to a new world and then you put it down.
Yeah, and it feels stimulating in a good way. Not as stimulating as in we're going to stimulate your senses so that you put more money in our pockets.
Yes.
It's stimulating as in oh wow, I never thought that gaming could feel like that. That kind of thing, which is really cool. This was a struggle to not have on my list.
No, I can imagine.
And I think if you asked me again tomorrow, it might be. This is one of the ones that I just kept putting it there to see what it looked like amidst the other ones. But let's go to my number 7.
Please.
Then. My number 7 is going to be a movie that kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting anything of it. You recommended it to me.
Okay.
And I watched it. It scared the shit out of me and left such a good impression, not just because it's scary, but because it's incredibly well filmed. It's Talk to Me.
Oh, Talk to Me. Oh, great. I don't have this on my list.
Talk to me. Well, then let's talk about it, Andrew.
Let's get a little handout.
It's pretty, a little medium's mummified hand. The premise is, imagine if, like, when we were growing up, salvia was this thing where some people would get salvia and they would take it and they would trip their balls off for like 5 minutes and then come back and everyone would laugh. If Snapchat were around there or at that time and you replaced salvia with a mummified hand that allows you to talk to ghosts, goblins, ghouls, etc.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. And it's filmed from the perspective of kids who are curious about this thing that's going on, which is essentially a placeholder for like the new drug on the street. And they find themselves in a situation that they can't control, as you would with the new drug on the street as well. But it plays off as a horror without jump scares. It is unbelievable. I loved this movie so much.
It's a really incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, think about it kind of like Flatliners, but for horror.
Sure.
You know, like you can cross the line, but it gets a little addictive and sometimes you go too far.
Yes.
And it's both visually really interesting and it doesn't avoid tropes. There are certain tropes in there that are in there, but the way that they display them are so interesting and creative that you have no problem with it.
Yeah.
And it is genuinely scary.
It is genuinely scary.
Genuinely
It was so scary that my girlfriend and I got in a fight over it pretty much after it. She was like mad at me for us watching it. I was like, I thought we agreed to watch this one. She's like, it was too scary. And it was like, and I understand because we were going to bed with just the heebie-jeebies.
No.
I mean, and it's scary enough to go to bed next to me in general.
Yeah.
But now you're thinking about ghosts and stuff. It's way worse.
God, I hope they take him first. That's all they're thinking. Then I'll solve 2 of my problems. Ghosts are gone and he's gone. That would not be easy.
Meanwhile, they walk into the room. I'm just like, what's up, Carl? We high five. She's like, oh, fuck.
Oh, no. He made a wager. Okay. Speaking of, my number 7. The Wager by David Gran. A book that came out.
Oh,
a book, everybody. A book. I try not to put too many books on here because
don't, Andrew, don't. You're going to make me gag. Don't.
I was reading. Oh, God. Reading is
it's just the thought about, like, I can read when it's in a video game and there's a dialogue box. But if you put,
okay, you can do it. You got it.
If you put like all of those, you stack them on top and print them on pulp.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
What about a Kindle? Can you do a Kindle?
Will someone read it to me from a Kindle?
It's kind of like Blade the Daywalker or something like that. David Gran is kind of a well-established author of the last 20, 30 years. He is also the author of The Killer of the Flower Moon and The Lost City of Z and a lot of really, really good movies. And now we're going to see even more of them made into movies.
I would assume, yeah.
Excuse me, books that are now made into movies. This was his newest one that came out. It's about a damned ship that... So his writing style is... It is real. I am reporting what has happened.
Sure.
But he kind of creates lines in between conversations or lines in between things that because of his like incredible research that you're like, okay, that makes sense. You would
believe that it happened this way.
We believe this is kind of
But it's not a nonfiction.
It's not a nonfiction.
Okay.
It's in the history section. How about that?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there are like he's not making things up, but there is assumptions that there are parts of like behind closed doors what would have been said.
Yeah.
And
in the room where it happened.
In the room where it happened. Very good. Yes. Maybe you should write a Hamilton book.
Yeah, I've got some things to say about him that Lynn didn't find out. Yeah.
It's just this one's a really, really incredible thing about a ship and the crew that kind of overcomes the captain. And I don't want to get too much into it because it's like kind of new and it will be made into a movie very soon probably. But it's really good and his writing is really propulsive and it's just one of those ones where you're like, it was a really big book and you're like, 3 days, eh? Huh. Wow. Like you just couldn't stop putting it down. You're like, oh, and then what happened? And then what happened? And guess what?
You couldn't stop putting it down?
Because I was like, keep throwing up. It's disgusting. Is that it's just it's always sad. Always his books are like, that's why there's an ending to this. It's always like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yes.
And probably I'll be speaking about one of his other works very soon, but it's just a really good book. And so I would recommend it to anybody.
I'm always looking for new book recommendations. So that may be on,
there you go.
The list. My next pick is my number 6th pick. I'm excited to talk about this one. When I first put my list together, this was, I think, like number 2. And it ended up getting pushed back because of some other things that I wanted to give some love and representation to. 2. But it is a movie that was sweet. It was funny. It dealt with a premise that I don't know that I've seen in a movie before. And it was incredibly well acted by actors who I haven't seen a ton of before, but I am sure we'll see a lot more of now moving forward, including Greta Lee, who starred in Past Lives.
Past Lives. Great movie. Not on my list.
Not on your list.
Not on my list. It's so funny. These are my favorite, the 10 favorite things or 10 things I loved. They're not the best of the year list for me.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
I totally get
and
that.
I'm not giving that a pass because Past Lives, I think we just talked about this the other night when we went out for drinks. Is a top 3 movie of the year for me.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's really, really good.
It has no business being this good.
It's very sweet. You know, it accomplishes something. It is sweet.
It is sweet. You're right. I shouldn't say that.
It's sweet in the same way that Everything Everywhere All at Once is sweet.
Sure.
Because there's this concept that you've lived all the lives, that there's like when it deals with, a lot of people call it the multiverse, but you can think of it in the same way as just infinity.
Yeah.
And the fact that all the decisions you can ever make kind of have already been made. And it's this poetic thought, and it's obviously not realistic to the life that we're living right now.
Yeah.
But it is nice to imagine all the things that could have been, being a part of who you are right now.
Yeah. So loose plot of this story. It's directed by Celine Song. It's her first movie, which
Wow.
She's a playwright, so that's pretty interesting. And it's semi-autobiographical of a young Korean woman that moves from there to Toronto, actually, where we live, and then on her process of moving to New York. And so she is an immigrant that, doesn't really have a home. But before she leaves, she's kind of ripped from her home a little bit. She had a friendship or a kinship with a young kid. Later in her life, after being married, this young kid is now an adult, just like she is, and kind of comes back to her and wants to meet. And it's it's like a closing door type thing of seeing him is seeing her life that she left behind in Korea and what her life could have been like.
Right.
And she now has her American husband that she loves, and she sees the two of them as the two different lives that she could have had. It's really good, and the ending is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
Holy God. It's like filmmaking where you're like, oh, that's going to stay with me forever.
It's funny because it's one of those things where like you think that there are one of 2 options that can happen in a movie like this, and this somehow finds a way to slide in the cracks of like an unpredictable ending in a movie that could have gone so many different ways. It's just phenomenal. It's really good filmmaking.
Yeah, it really is. It doesn't rely on stars, doesn't rely on anything, but really great performances all across. And I love the ending because I think it's pretty clear what it's supposed to mean or what happens. But the people in the bathroom of the theater disagreed with me completely because they were talking about it. I'm like, wait, that's what you get out of it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh,
we'll have to talk about it off talk because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but I'm so curious about what they're.
I didn't think it was ambiguous. I thought it was very clear, but whatever. Great movie. I'm so glad you chose that.
Yeah.
All right, number 6. I'm just pulling up my phone here. Number 6.
No, do it. We'll wait. It's fine.
Number 6.
Yeah.
I just need to enter my code. It's 32 digits. Security's important to me.
32 digits. What a unique code, Andrew.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
all the way to 32. The button number 32.
11, 12, 13. All right, number 6 is going to be The Record by Boy Genius. An album I could not stop listening to this year. Boy Genius, it is their first studio debut album. They put it out an EP, I think in 2018, but it's kind of a super group. It's Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus, and they make great, wonderful, charming, sad music.
Not to put you on the spot. I know of this group. I love Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling it a supergroup. I'm not familiar with the other 2's work that they've done.
I think they're going with supergroup because they're in other bands. Everyone's in everyone has their own career, and then they come together to do this.
But they're not all super. Like Phoebe Bridgers is Phoebe Bridgers, and I've never really heard of the other 2. Yeah,
and that's why Phoebe Bridgers is kind of the lead of this one because with the other 2 are musicians, but they sing actually a lot on these as well. It's a really good album. I understand music is the most subjective of anything we could talk about on here. Where you love something and I'm like, not for me, and I totally understand that. This is like right down my alley of like I love female-led sad rock. That is like right down my alley, and this is just a perfect combination of 3 things. So my Spotify Wrapped, it's by far my number 1, and so I had to throw it on my 10 favorite things.
Yeah, it didn't. I know this album, I'm familiar with it. Didn't speak to me the same way. I don't know why. I didn't
ask, but that's okay.
But I feel like I should let everyone know my thoughts on it because this is a conversation.
Oh, is it?
It should be. Sometimes I feel like
you could ask me what I liked about it,
but I feel like you already said that.
No, you did.
It's sad. It's sad.
Sad girl rock.
Sad girl rock.
It's a good tattoo. Sad girl rock.
What did you like about it, Andrew?
It was
because I'll tell you what I liked about it.
No, you told me you didn't like about it.
Didn't like about it. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Like I'm saying about music, it's a totally
it's
subjective
incredibly
thing.
subjective.
And
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that's why it's probably not. I would never put anything. Well, you put music number one though last year.
I did.
So like I was just gonna say I probably wouldn't put it number one.
And a lot of people actually reached out and they're like, never heard of the guy. I gave it a shot based on your recommendation, and I made some Orville Peck fans out there. So you may make some Boy Genius fans out there.
That would be great. There we go.
Yeah.
Making friends.
So my number 5, we're cracking our top 5 here, is a TV show that I forgot was from this year. I didn't realize it until I was like, I made my list. I checked it twice. Santa was good with it.
Pissed.
He was pissed off. He's like,
what is he doing?
I'm trademarking that right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he's like, that's what I do.
He's in his lawyer's office now. That's what he's doing. I made my list and then I started to check other top 50 lists, whatever, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And this was on one of them. I totally forgot that I watched it this year. I could have sworn, so much so that I checked my last year's top list to make sure it wasn't on it. Paul T. Goldman, one of the most bizarre TV shows I've ever seen, which is, I think, shares some of the same DNA as like a Nathan Fielder show, kind of like Nathan For You, or The Rehearsal or something along those lines, where the director is a character in the show itself, and it's clear that the show is being made as it's being filmed. The narrative is shifting, and you really don't know what this is supposed to be about. It follows this guy, Paul T. Goldman, who had been messaging directors all around Hollywood to try to ask them to produce a movie that was based on his life, where he plays the main character, and he's written books about it and put it on Amazon, and the story is too crazy to believe. So this director, you probably know his name.
I forget his name. I'll look it up. Sorry,
Jason something.
Jason Wilder.
Jason Wilder. Yeah. Decides to do it and kind of makes a joke out of it, and it becomes sort of a mockery, but then you end up feeling bad for Paul T. Goldman, even though he's an awful person. And it's just the emotions that you end up feeling in this are unlike anything I've ever felt. You know, I mentioned with Alan Wake, I'm like, I don't know if it landed or didn't land, but all I know is I haven't stopped thinking about it. I know that this landed really well, and I've been thinking about it constantly. I just assumed it was from last year. Yeah. It feels like it's always been a part of my life. So Paul T. Goldman is my number 5.
It's Jason Woliner, by the way.
Woliner, yeah.
Really very interesting. So unique. It's one of those ones that like in 10 years, people are like, hear about this thing?
Yes.
Like they'll pull out like something out of an archive and you're like, no, it was something that came out, you know?
Exactly.
Man, it's such a weird story. You got to watch it at home if
it's very hard to explain.
It is really hard. It's almost like if we start explaining, we'll be here for 10 minutes.
That's it. Similar to The Rehearsal, I think.
Yeah. A lot like that. Yeah. Okay, so my number 5 is going to be a little cinematic picture called Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, wow. I thought this was going to be higher for you.
This is probably going to be my favorite movie of the year as we get closer to it. I have things higher, but just more because of some stuff around it and I want to talk about. It's, you know, Martin Scorsese wants to keep making movies. You know, let him. It's visually captivating. I think everybody gives an incredible performance, and it's like a real who's who of like actors they just want to pull out that are character actors.
Do you think this is Leo's best performance?
You know, honestly, I do. Because The Revenant, they gave it to him for. No one's ever thought about that movie ever since.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge Departed fan, even though I know a lot of people really like that one. I think he's really, really good in this because he plays very against type. He plays an idiot. Does he have a heart of gold? It's like there's big questions that remain of that one. You know, but I think Martin Scorsese just made like and then at the end in the third act, he is just like Rolodexing big actors to come in for 3 scenes that can chew as much scenery as possible.
Yes.
I just like John Lithgow. You want to show up? And he's just like, yeah, sure.
You're like, clearly John Lithgow is going to be the biggest surprise in this courtroom. Nope, Brendan Fraser.
For more than one reason. Yeah. It's a really hard story to tell. The book is really, really good. I would, once again, David Grant's book.
Yep.
I would go back and read it because it ends in a certain way too, where Martin Scorsese is almost admitting going, I can't tell you the whole story.
Yes.
That's not the point. I'm telling you this part of the story. This is the best I could do. And it was my version of it. And I think there's something really cool about the authorship of saying like, this is my version of the story. It's the best I could do.
Yeah.
And man, it's pretty staggeringly beautiful at times. So I really just, it left a big mark on me. So that's my
I agree. I watched, it's very, very long. My player one and I watched it in 3 sittings and it was, I did like it. I liked it. I thought it was good. I did struggle with some of the character choices and like what they were thinking and how were they thinking it. But I do think Scorsese does a good job of basically subjectifying the whole thing and saying, you know, they may not have been the way that I'm portraying them, but that's the story that I'm telling. Cause I'm like, there's no way this person would be thinking this right now or doing that. But ultimately it's a great conversation piece. Like you and I had this conversation about character motivations.
Yep.
And there were so many levels to it where it's like, well, if they're doing this, but they did this, which means they may not have thought this. And it almost like we're solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
And that's fun to do with
It
movies.
is.
And I wouldn't have expected that from a Scorsese movie, to be completely honest, but, or at least a recent one. I did really enjoy this one, but it wasn't on my list.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. It is just funny where he can still like be 80 years old and just gotta like reach back into his bag and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's really good.
Yeah.
So there you go. Killers of the Flower Moon, number 5 for me.
Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 4 for me is a build-up. Last year we had, I think as both of our number ones are close to it, Better Call Saul, the final season of it. Final season of this show, this TV show that I want to talk about. I thought it was a big build-up, a big year for the ends of television shows. I feel like this is probably going to be on your list. I'm not 100% sure though, but Succession.
Yeah.
Did it make your list?
Oh yeah, it made my list, and
We'll talk about it later.
we will talk about it in a second. It's my number 3. Not to spoil anything. Do you want to talk about it now? It's the next one.
Okay, let's talk about it now.
Yeah, let's talk about it now.
So, I'm curious, Andrew. Better Call Saul making, I think it was your number 1 or close to your number 1
Yeah, I
last
think
year.
it was my number 1.
I think it was my number 1 as well. And, similar ending in like this big sweeping fashion to a TV show. Why is this your number 3 where Better Call Saul was your number 1?
I'm really glad you did that, and it's not a quality thing.
Yeah.
I want to make that very clear. I think this was very good, and I think it obviously, when you do it last season, there is a little bit of a summarization of all the seasons that you're kind of putting into this and going, Succession, number 3, because it's a good show.
Yep.
But it also, it feels there's a little bit of death to monoculture. There's a little bit of death to water cooler television.
Yeah.
And Succession feels like there will be something else, but it'll be a little bit smaller, and a little smaller, and a little smaller. This feels like the last big one a lot of us had.
Yeah.
Where my parents were watching, and my friends were watching, and my player one's parents, and like, your friends at your work. Everyone was kind of watching the show, and it was so much fun to have people watch it on a Sunday night, the night it was coming out, and then be able to talk about it on Monday. I don't know how many more shows we're going to have like that. And especially with just all the amazing writing, amazing acting, and it looked so sexy and beautiful and stuff. And for the most part, they nailed the landing. That's great. I miss this cultural event.
I do too, especially when it comes to television, that weekly thing. There's something so good about that Sunday night, like looking forward to something at the end of a weekend when usually I'm dreading 9 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yes.
I'm more of a 9 o'clock on a Saturday when the regular crowd shuffles in. That's usually what I'm going for. 9 o'clock on a Sunday.
Oh my God. It's Billy Joel's number 1 on his list again.
Year after year is Billy Joel.
Yeah.
What did he do this year? Nothing.
He's just Billy Joel, and you better bite your tongue.
You can't step into the same river twice. Billy Joel is a new man every year, and he gets top on my list for sure.
You never go home again, except for Billy Joel can go to New Jersey whenever he fucking wants.
He can go whenever he wants. In fact, New Jersey isn't home unless Billy Joel is inside of it somewhere.
Yeah, it is Jersey, right? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's Jersey. Yeah. No, but there's something so good about that feeling of like, this is my time to relax and decompress and something to look forward to. And every single episode, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions of this year, it was like asked and answered. It gave me exactly what I wanted. Yep. It gave me so many different set pieces. The ends of some character arcs, I don't want to ruin too much, but the end of certain character arcs were so unexpected and spontaneous in ways that you wouldn't have written. If someone tells you to write the end of a story, you're going to do it much more with a flourish.
Yes, 100%.
Whereas this was just subtle, and the power of that subtlety was great and human. And even the end, even the last scene where it's like, you got what you want. You happy about it? And you just, and that's what this culture and what this life is about. This culture being like the billionaires of the world.
Richest of rich. Yeah. It is really incredible. You're right. That's so funny. I hadn't thought about that, but at the end of the season, it was like 1 by 1. You'd be like, and that's series wrap for this character.
Yes.
And that's the last time you're going to see them as they say goodbye. And the show is ultimately Shakespearean, but in a comedy, obviously one of Shakespeare's comedies, because it's so farcical. But there is those moments where you're like, oh yeah. And it makes you appreciate the subtlety. Like the fact that like this, one of the scenes I'll always remember is Shiv holding hands, in the limo.
Oh, barely holding hands.
Just touching each other. And it's like, oh God. Damn it. Yeah. Oh,
it's great.
Fantastic.
It's unbelievable. So that was my number 4, your number 3.
My
Do you
number
want to
3.
give your number 4?
My number 4 is going to be Legends of Zelda.
That is coming up. Actually, that's my next one. So let's talk about it.
There we go.
This
Chris
is Tears of the Kingdom. Why don't you start?
Sure. This is my first Zelda game I've ever played. Have you been listening to the podcast?
Wild to me. But
crazy.
You still don't know what Zelda is all about. Like this is still not a Zelda game.
Ghost arms and creating structures that slide around.
You get it. So you get it.
See,
Okay,
everyone get it.
I just thought it was going to be a bit highbrow for you.
Who could forget Waru in his ninth Zelda game? Probably.
Oh, of course. He's all over the place. Yeah.
So I never played this game, this series before, and I really should go back and play. But the other problem is, it's like somebody going back to play Mario or something like that. You're like, I don't know if you're going to appreciate the way it is after you play like Wonder, because you're like, oh, this is so simple and small. I'm really glad I got in when I did, because this game is a lot.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's a lot. And but in a good way. It allows you to do almost anything. The way that it is somehow outsmarted you at every step of the way, yet is fun and challenging and frustrating and rewarding. There are so many moments where I'd have to put down my controller and go, now what the fuck do I do?
Yes.
And then you go, oh, okay. And then sometimes you'd even turn it off, walk around, and you go, oh, okay, wait. You got to go back and like try something.
And when you do it in a way where it always feels like you're breaking the game to do it that way. And every time you do it, they're waiting for you. Like, we knew exactly where you'd be right now. Like, I remember one of the reasons why this is so high up on my list in a year with a ton of great video games is because it gave me that same feeling that Death Stranding gave me. And we talked about this ad nauseum, where the experience of playing, the experience of journeying in the game is the game.
Yeah.
It's not about getting to the end place, and this is where the magic happens. The magic happens along the way. And I remember one of my first big times sitting down and playing this game for a couple hours, just trying to get to one of the temples. And the whole thing was like, this is the level. The level is trying to get to the temple. Who knows what's going to happen when I get there? And there were rafts and flights and getting thrown in all these areas, and you could do things. I mean, everyone who's listening to this knows this, but you can like phase up through solid matter. And it was such a random way for me to almost feel like I was tricking the game to allow me to get to this space. And when I got there, it was literally exactly where I was supposed to be, in a way that I was meeting up with this bird somewhere, and the bird was just at the top of a mountain that I just happened to climb, thinking that I was off course. I'm like, how the fuck did it know that in this massive sprawling world with a million ways to get from point A to point B, I was going to end up right here, right now? It was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's a real achievement. And like you're kind of saying, it's very different than other Zelda games and stuff like that. But I think in that way, it's going to be kind of remembered for that and be beautiful for that, because it'll go back to another Zelda game different next time, and that'll be something interesting and different on its own. And so I'm so glad that this was the installment I got to play. Yeah,
I do kind of hope that they don't only go back to this formula. I do love the traditional Zelda formula that's a little bit more toned down, a little bit more adventure combat focused, like people with dungeons and things like that, like an Ocarina of Time or something like that. I Wind Waker specifically. People who have played them know what I'm talking about, but this is great as an accomplishment and was so wildly different from Breath of the Wild, even though it shares the same map and has a lot in common. The addition of all the building mechanics made it feel like an entirely different game in a way that I don't think I would have expected when they first announced it and showed what it looked like. So kudos to Nintendo for pulling this one off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, just a really big achievement. So yes, that is my, what did I say, fourth, and your third?
My third. So and your third was Succession?
My third was Succession.
So let's jump to my number two. This is the last appearance of a TV show on my list. And I think, you talk about that prestige television and how Succession was kind of the last big one where we're all watching it together. I think this is going to be the one to take it up, because everyone in the world I knew was watching it, which is wildly surprising, because years and years and years ago, I played this little game called The Last of Us and figured that the story that's contained therein would be something that only I, as a video game fan, got to experience, and my parents would just hear me blathering on about it. But now we get to share it with everyone.
Yeah, that's my number one.
It is your number one.
Yes.
So let's talk about it right now.
Let's talk about it right now. I think that's exactly it. It's my number one because was it my favorite TV show of the year? Well, I don't know. Probably pretty close. Yep. Was it the best thing that I watched? I don't know. Maybe, it'd be in a discussion thing. But for the sake of this,
stop asking these questions and not answering them, Andrew.
I'm a question asker. I'm a rebel rouser. For the sake of this podcast particularly, this is something you and I have talked about for as long as this podcast has been going on, which is 5+ years, is to say, when are we going to start treating video games with the seriousness that it deserves? Video games are the highest selling, highest grossing. If it's money, okay, then they make the most. If it's critical acclaim, look at how much people love these certain games. And now we're getting a crossover, and this feels like the first real one where no matter who you were, whether you knew it was from a video game or not, it had a huge success rate. People loved it, and it came from a video game. And not because it was interpreted from a video game, not because the characters were inspired by a video game. It is almost a one-to-one from a video game that everyone loved. And I think it's just breaking the wall of something we've wanted for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of bridging the gap. And so many people who started watching it because it was an HBO show and then found out it's based on a video game, I think their minds are blown by that, because people who don't know right now that there are intricate, great stories being told in this medium probably just assume that all video games are Mario or Pong. And for them,
GTA.
or GTA, or something like that. And then they realize that there's subtlety and there are human stories and all that. It's great for video games. What
you said?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I'm just thinking about episode 3, Andrew. It gets me every time.
Oh God.
The disappointing thing though, having a TV show versus the video game is I think the TV show did do the Bill and Frank story better, because I remember in The Last of Us Part 2 getting to that point and it was just like, press F to fuck him. And that was all. It was like, press F to fuck him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to have more subtlety than this.
Where's strawberry like ball gag?
Where's strawberry ball gag?
Yeah.
Drink all the wine, Y/N.
Yeah.
So you could choose whether to do it or not. And then, but here's the distasteful part, is after he drinks all the wine, it says press F to fuck him again.
Take advantage.
Just take advantage. And I'm like, guys, this is not the story we want to be telling.
Yeah, or like when it was like, give drugs to end life.
Yes.
And it's like split and you go, no. Just let him die.
Don't split it. Just like raid the liquor cabinet.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. And then there's that point in the game that we all struggled with where he's like, you need to roll me up the stairs bring me back up the stairs for the last time. And you can just ignore him.
Yeah,
and he dies at the bottom of the stairs. But then the annoying thing is you still have to dispose of the body because it starts to smell bad.
Yeah. Are you coming back? You're just asleep. You're like, shut up.
I'm watching this rerun of the Dick Van Dyke New Year special, 1999.
Dick Van Dyke, 1999. Eh?
Yeah.
Wow. They're pretty old.
Yeah, I mean, he's still doing it.
Yeah, he was at Disney World last week. He looks amazing. Oh no, there goes the retrograde curse. He's gonna be dead by the time this podcast comes out.
Not again.
Yeah, like obviously the Bill and Frank episode is probably the greatest episode of television this year.
Yes.
I think people had the most, resonance with it. It just really hit on every level. And if there is any, we've always talked about like doing a video game of a movie or a TV show gets to expand that world a little bit. You get to have these moments. It's really funny to see the opposite where this video game that is 60 plus hours.
Yeah.
And then you get to go like, no, we'll tell a story from here on out.
Yes.
And you know what? It totally works because as a video game, that probably wouldn't have been a lot of fun.
I agree. It would have been a very long cutscene, at which point, why isn't it just a movie? And that's something that video games do struggle with quite a bit. But here's a question that I have to you as a gaming fan, as someone who played The Last of Us, and we all, it's like we had the secret. We knew this story existed and it was unbelievable. It is a little sad that it took a TV show to shed light on what we have as gamers,
Yeah.
But maybe we talk about it all the time, but the medium of gaming has the biggest barrier to entry because you need skill to experience a story in a lot of cases. And I know a lot of games are changing that by having like a story mode where you can't die or make like Spider-Man has that, for example.
Does it?
It does.
Oh, wow.
It does. Yeah.
Nice.
So I know that it's unrealistic to think that people are just going to one day look at video games and be like, hey, that shit's pretty good. It is going to take something like this, but I hope that for every 10 people who realize it's based on a video game, one of them buys the game, plays it, and becomes a gamer as a result. That would be fun.
But okay, see, this is where I'm going to push back though. We don't need that validation. The game is done like billions of dollars.
For sure.
It's not like, oh, finally we got the validation. Like, why do we need their validation to prove that this is something that is worthwhile?
Yeah, it may just be a little bit of like a little brother syndrome.
Sure.
I know what you mean, but it is still frustrating. I struggle with this all the time, and I talk about it on the podcast where I can watch 10 hours of I can legitimately watch 4 hours of a TV show in one day in one sitting and not feel bad about it. But if I play 2 hours of a video game, I feel like I've wasted my time. And that's so deeply ingrained. Yes. I don't want to put that on like the next generation. And I think part of that is getting video games commonly accepted by everybody, so
And-
that
and stuff
shame
like
isn't
this.
there, and stuff like this
Yes,
will.
I completely agree with you. Okay, so that was my number one. That was your number two. So I should go next with my number
Your
two.
number
and then
two.
okay, there we
Yes.
go. Numbers are hard. My number two is going to be Barbenheimer. The Barbenheimer
The
phenomenon.
experience, the
I
experience.
thought this was phenomenal. If you don't know me, and if you don't know that I kind of bring this up all the time, I love going to the theater. I
Yes.
think it's an important experience that I find very relaxing.
He loves
for me.
it so much that he calls it the theater still.
Yeah, the cinema.
The cinema.
Yeah.
I go to the movies.
I went to do the cinema yesterday to see Trolls World Tour.
Oh, Andrew, don't shake your neck so much. I think your ascot is going to fall off.
My little turkey neck. Yeah, I love going to the theater, and you know, I think during COVID, everyone had that fear, like, well, maybe this is it. You know, like maybe we're just not gonna have movie theaters anymore. And I really do believe that there's an experience you kind of get different from at home. Movies at home are great. You know what I mean? But it's fun to watch with other people. As more and more we become isolated, it's fun to watch comedy and horror and be scared with people and laugh and hear people's reactions and stuff like that. And I think Barbenheimer was such a great reaction because it makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense that Barbie and Oppenheimer came out in the same weekend as a fuck you to Christopher Nolan for switching studios. and
Is that what it was?
Partially, yes.
Wow.
And then Greta Gerwig tried to get them to switch the date, and they're like, no.
Wow.
They're like, okay, well, Warner Bros. Really has it
I
in
think
now.
it benefited both movies, though.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, we've never seen anything like this before.
Yes.
I doubt we'll see anything like this ever again, where it's like two very different movies. But what was so much fun was going to the theater and seeing whole theaters dressed in pink. And then a few guys in trench coats, and everyone's like, oh, watch out. Oh, God.
Yeah, he's not going into the Dark Knight, is he?
Yeah, exactly. And both movies being good, and both movies making a ton of money.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a win-win-win, and it was so much fun to see, and I think it says a lot about an exciting moment. You have these little moments that you can have, and this is one of them.
Totally. Yeah. You know, monoculture is the thing that keeps coming back. And it did feel, you know, my player one and I went to go see Oppenheimer day one, and coming back, it was just the streets of Toronto were just filled with people wearing pink. Yeah. I've never seen anything like that before. Even for Super Mario, that's what I would have thought you would see at the theater.
Sure.
More people with like Mario hats or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it was Barbie and pink and purses. And I don't think I truly appreciated Barbie's cultural resonance to this, like its lasting resonance to this day, because people still clearly really cared, and they made a great movie.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, jury's out for me. We did a whole review on that. Yeah.
One of the funniest podcasts we've ever done.
To this day, I thought you were joking when you first said it was unbelievable.
Mikey didn't like it. I loved it. And I could tell you didn't like it because you saw it first. And I hid it from you because I knew once we got on the podcast, I'm like, I loved it. And you were like, I remember you going like, are you kidding?
Yeah, I
Your face
legitimately
just
thought you
dropped?
were. I thought you were. I was like, this
So
is going to
good.
be a very different experience recording this podcast. My number one is something that I don't think you're going to be able to speak too much about.
Okay.
But I already have spoken about it quite a bit on this podcast. It was a game that I thought should have been nominated for Game of the Year. It did win one game award, and that was Best Debut Indie. It is the game Cocoon.
Oh.
And I talk all the time about how many great sequels, how many great remakes, how many great season sixes and multiple ends of seasons we had this year. This one, Cocoon, is a new entry by Jeppe Carlson. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly, but one of the creative minds behind, I think so.
Yeah.
One of the creative minds behind Cocoon and Inside, or Cocoon, obviously, Limbo and Inside.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most mind-bending puzzle games I've ever played. Similar to Tears of the Kingdom, though, where they know where your head is at before you even do. The way they guide, and a lot of good indie games do this, they guide your understanding, your knowledge, and your abilities in the game so perfectly as they parcel out different nuggets of information that it never feels like you're playing from behind. It always feels like you're just about to figure it out, and then you do, and it's satisfying. It's not easy, but you do it, and it's satisfying. And Cocoon had that the whole way. It's literally a game where you carry galaxies on your back, and you go into them in order to achieve puzzles and try to bring them into one another, and you're layering these puzzles on top of other puzzles and using environments to fix puzzles in other galaxies. It is wild. It is baffling, similar to Paul T. Goldman in The Rehearsal. If I tried to explain it, my head would fall off. I really recommend going and playing it. It's on Game Pass, so you got no excuses. And it was about a 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 hour experience.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Very bite size.
Yeah.
You love video games where people carry things.
It's all I want. Death Stranding.
Do you see they're making a movie?
I did. Very curious.
I wonder who the casting's going to be. That would be the biggest kick in the ass of all time that they're like, Norman
Chris Pratt?
Reedus. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. And it's somebody like that. And they're like, yeah, it's like, Norman's like, what the fuck?
What the fuck just
You
happened?
used my face and everything. Like,
If I don't see Chris Pratt hang dong and piss on a shadow in real time, I don't know what I'm watching this movie for.
oh, it's going to be great. Yeah. It's I'm just thinking of all the horrible casting choices thinking like Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
Hope you like that because it's going to be. Who's that guy that I can't believe I brought that up without knowing. Who's that guy I don't like? He's from Frozen. He's the snowman.
Oh, who played Olaf?
Yeah, who played Olaf. He's in
Josh Gad?
Josh Gad.
Yeah.
He's in everything.
Yes.
And you're going to be like, yeah, it's going to be Josh Gad. I'm like, no, that's worse.
No, we don't want that.
That's
We want
bad.
Guillermo del Toro to get in the shower with us.
I'm excited. Kojima making movies. That's very exciting.
I'm happy that he's breaking that threshold. I'm more excited still about his partnership with Jordan Peele in whatever it is. I like the fact that they don't know what it is yet. Like, are we creating a new medium right now? Because that's very exciting to me, and I want Jordan Peele and Hideo Kojima to be behind it if that's the case.
Well, more things to talk about in 2024.
Yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Oh yeah, I got a couple of them, but it was yes. The answer is everything else.
Notably missing from yours and my list is Barry.
Yeah. It's funny. With the further we get away from it, it feels like the last season, which I do like, is very different than the rest of the show.
Yes.
And I think that hurts it in a little way.
I liked the ending. I didn't love the experience of watching the whole season.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Did you watch Gen V?
No, I didn't.
It's good.
Is that the boys?
Yes, the boys spin-off type thing, which already made me go like, nah, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
No, it's actually quite good. Dead Ringers was incredible this season for television. I would also say Righteous Gemstones because I got my player one. She's not listening. Doesn't matter. I got her for Christmas a Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers t-shirt.
Amazing.
Because it's something we repeat at home all the time.
Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers.
Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers. Walton Galgans is so fucking
He's
funny.
the best.
Those are really good. And then the last season of Reservation Dogs, it's not as good as the first two seasons, but man, that show just wallops you.
I keep hearing that.
Holy smokes. And there is a cameo in there the last season that like I genuinely whoa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Because it's a small little show,
Tom Cruise.
right? Not far off. And so those were all really, really good. Fortnite, I didn't put Fortnite on there, but it could be on there every year just because it really staggered me.
Overwatch 2 was close to making my list last year and is nowhere to be seen this year.
Interesting. Wonder what happened.
Wonder what happened. Some honorable mentions for me. Mrs. Davis was a fantastic TV show that was weird as hell that I think it was Damon Lindelof. Blue Eye Samurai is one of the greatest TV experiences I'm having right now, but I'm not finished it, so I didn't put it on the list.
Nice.
Jury Duty was very interesting. The other two ended pretty well. How To with John Oliver, the series finale was great.
No, not John Oliver.
John Wilson. John Wilson.
Yeah.
Infinity Pool is a great movie. Megan, Sea of Stars, Dave the Diver. Spider-Man 2 didn't make our lists.
I know.
And Love and Death is a TV show as well.
Man, Spider-Man 2 just getting like Game Awards. Now
I took so much shit for what I said during our podcast about how it's very good, but it is not groundbreaking. And it seems to be that is just the accepted truth now.
But also at the same time,
Fine.
Like it's
Totally.
good.
It doesn't have to be
like,
the best,
God
the
damn
best
it.
one ever.
Why is it the GOAT thing that just drives me crazy? Yeah.
The last thing that I want to do
Please.
is take a look at my most anticipated of 2023 and do kind of a recap of it. So Hollow Knight 2 and Judas were top of my list. They didn't come out this year, so it doesn't count. Number 3 was Cocoon. Number 4 was Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Those were both on my list and very high. Starfield was nowhere near my top 10. Armored Core 6 nowhere near my top 10, but I didn't play it, unfortunately. Stalker 2 didn't come out. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was on my most anticipated list, and
so
I
same with
think
me.
is removed. Spider-Man 2 was there but didn't make it. Atomic Heart was there and didn't make it. And
my top three, by the way, were Marvel, Spider-Man 2, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and Alan Wake 2.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
That's pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Jedi War Survivor was number 4. Suicide Squad was number 5.
We really were excited about Suicide Squad.
They put out that one trailer, and I
Yes.
think we had all been off the fumes of Peacemaker, and we're like, this is going to be good.
It's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it still looks terrible.
Yeah, okay, still looks terrible.
Hope it's not, but whatever.
Those are things that we love. Please let us know what you love. We'll read out some in the next couple of weeks.
We will. We've got a very special episode for our next episode.
Yes.
It's not launching on the Tuesday as it normally will. This one's launching earlier. It's going to launch on December 31st. It is traditionally only reserved for our Patreon, but we shot it in the back of the head, kicked its teeth down its throat, and it choked on them and died. We instead are going to do this on the main feed, but we're going to release it a couple days earlier. So there won't be an episode on the Tuesday. There will be an episode on the 31st. It is our Century Club New Year's Eve countdown. It is 100 minutes. In each of those minutes, we do a shot of beer and we just talk shit. And usually we don't remember the end of the episode by the time we get there.
We just get drunk. And so the point of it is we start an hour and 40 minutes before midnight so that you can do it with us and drink. And, just in case you want some company over the holidays and for New Year's Eve, you can do it with us as we celebrate the new year together.
I love recording that episode so much.
So much
it is
fun.
The best. So
it is also chaotic. It is
so chaotic.
All over
I
the place.
spill so much beer. We forget what we're talking about.
We always have like a theme. I'm saying this now because I'm trying to convince us to be good. We're like every 10, we'll ask a trivia question. Then 30 comes around. We're like, yeah, what are you gonna do?
We tried the first time we did it. It was every shot we had to name a video game, and by the end we couldn't. We're like Mario, and my sister, who was like negotiating the whole thing, she's like, you said that at number 3, and we were like, sorry.
It's one of the few times that we need a second producer other than Elliot to help us keep it on rail. So yes, that's always a lot of fun. So look forward to that on the 31st as we get to celebrate the New Year's with everybody. But please let us know your 10 favorite things. We want to know because we'll read them out. We'll read them out during the New Year's thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But until then, happy holidays, and we love every single one of you. My name is Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. You know what my real number one thing of 2023 was?
What?
Just being myself.
Not me?
Who are you? Where am I?
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
And welcome to the Retrograde.
Do you want to redo that?
I'm really sick.